Does traditional education deliver or fall short in educating and nurturing children? Introducing Aligned Learning Revolution, the show that confronts conventional norms and presents dynamic alternatives to transform education. Host Kohila Sivas tackles the foundational issues within classroom walls and advocates for holistic learning opportunities. It's time to reveal the strength of the innovative, holistic neurogrowth learning approach that goes beyond conventional teaching or tutoring methods, assuring every learner of a stress-free learning journey to unlock their fullest potential. Now, join Kohila Sivas.
Hello and welcome to our show today. Hello and welcome. Today, I have the pleasure of meeting with the unstoppable Justin Loutfy. He is a real go-getter who knows how to help people improve their lives and chase after their dreams and live their purpose. Justin has accomplished some amazing things. He has been in the special warfare, written a book called Never Outworked, Stepping into the Light, and he is an expert at helping others get amazing results in their businesses and real estate. Plus, he is an Ironman competitor and a dedicated dad to his two amazing daughters. Justin is all about finding the right balance, and he is here to share his secrets with us, especially if you're looking for personal development and determination. You said it wasn't her fault. She didn't have the right parents herself, so then she ended up not being the best mom, but it's almost like you forgave her, right? Forgiven her. So how important is that to recognize that as at your age?
We look at, as parents, we look at these things that happen to us in life, and they can be generational. If you never take that step of forgiveness, then what you come at risk of doing is passing on whatever it is that came to you to your children. And I started to recognize this because I was also starting to have bad habits, just as a husband and a man, where I had these negative thoughts, and I had to really dig into it and figure out, okay, where does this come from? Why do you feel this way? And I realized it was because I was still holding on to a lot of anger. And when you hold on to a lot of anger as a parent, that affects your ability to love. And I knew if I was going to really love and give myself to my wife and fully love my kids, the first thing I needed to do was forgive, because I couldn't hold that anger in forever. Otherwise, it would just hold me back from giving them love. And when I realized that, it made things so much simpler for me.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a good relationship with your mom now?
We're still a little bit distant, because we live on opposite sides of the country. But I've told her before, like, I have forgiven her for everything that we went through together, and I never held it against her.
The space and time.
Yeah.
And does she ever come and visit your daughters? Like, how is that relationship with the daughters, the new grandkids?
No, my daughters are pretty young though, so there's still time.
Still time. Awesome. So let's talk about how, after getting into the Air Force, after you got accepted, are you still in it?
No, I left the Air Force about 4 years ago.
Okay. So what made you make that shift? What happened?
So my last 5 years in the service, I was in special warfare, where I was gone a lot. I'd gone 2 weeks out of every month, deployed for 6 months, and I was new husband. So, really not home a lot to really cultivate that relationship as a husband and wife, but also we were about to have our first daughter, so I knew that if I wanted to continue down this path, I wouldn't be home much. So I had to find another route. So I started looking at, what I qualified for, what I was able to do outside the military, which brought me to operations, which I jumped into because I said, you know what, I want to be home more. This was what my resume says I can do. Let's give that a shot.
Yeah. And that's probably, you learned that from your dad, because he was never at home for you.
Yeah. Like I said, I really wanted to make sure that I was present for my kids, because that's the one thing you always remember is when people show up. You don't always remember like working or going on trips or providing, but you remember when people showed up to your swim meets, your soccer games, whatever. And so I wanted to make sure that I was there for my kids, and also that I'd be home to be a good husband and really nurture that relationship with my wife.
It's amazing. So now you have a book out.
I do. Yeah.
Yes. What's the name of that book?
The book's titled Never Outworked, Stepping into the Light.
Mhm.
And the reason why I chose stepping into light is because I realized that over time, especially coming out of the military, we kind of box ourselves into what we can do. And I'm sure you've seen this with teachers, is you come out of school, you look at everything that you can do on your resume, everything that all the keywords that fit on that piece of paper. And then you say,
Mhm.
okay, these are the things I'm qualified to do. This is the life that I'm able to do based on this sheet of paper. But in
Mhm.
reality, what we're doing is really boxing people in and never actually letting people pursue their true selves, pursue like the purpose that you're here, like the reason why you got created, and help like push humanity forward in a way that only you can do.
Mhm.
The only way you get to do that is when you really step into the light and really kind of let go of all of those shackles or that idea or preconceived notions of what you can or should do, and you just become yourself. And that's what I
Mhm.
really learned through this process. So I chronicled all these stories growing up, stories through the military, to show people like, hey, you can make your life whatever you want it to be, and try to show that it just takes a little bit of work.
Mhm. And what does that work look like? I know I wanted to ask you about two different words that when I was reading your introduction, I had that determination and discipline seems to be two words that just came up for me when I was reading about yourself. So how did you keep yourself so disciplined during, you had a broken home, two separate home, dad's out, mom's not that supportive. How did you grow up to be this determined?
I'd reached a point in my life that I reached a bottom. I'll tell you, when I was 18 years old, I had a full scholarship to college. And on my first day of college, I got arrested and lost my scholarship.
Oh.
I spent 2 nights in prison in an orange jumpsuit and got a lecture from a man who was about 20 years older than me. He said, hey, you don't belong here. This is not what you want your life to look like. And hitting that bottom, really made me realize, okay, like I need to put some work and I need to change the direction I'm going because I don't like where my life is going right now. Like it's time to get to work. And, what I realized, especially from my grandmother and my dad coming here from Egypt, is in this country, like you can make your life whatever it is you want it to be. Like you can really get to work and make your life how you picture it, but it just takes work. It takes determination, it takes discipline, like you were saying. It takes putting yourself into uncomfortable spaces, being willing to step out and speak and be yourself without worry.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so every time I would go after something, I'd put a sign on my wall that said never be outworked. Whether I was going to applying to college or trying to get into special warfare or starting a business, I put that same sign on my wall that said never be outworked. And it wasn't never be outworked in everything, but it's never be outworked in the thing that I'm pursuing, which is finding what I'm capable of. And I
Mhm.
reminded myself of that every morning.
Mhm. And you're an example of it. It's possible. So let's go back to that conversation you have within your mind, because I'm always about my mind. My methodology is all about how we train our mind and take control of our mind. I think it's what happened at that moment you hit the bottom, right? When that
Yeah.
man was speaking to you. You started speaking to yourself.
Well, the problem was I was trying to get comfortable in an area that I wasn't supposed to be. So I had
Mm.
been there for 2 days and I was starting to try to make friends and I was playing cards with other inmates. And this guy just snatched me up and he said, hey, let me talk to you. And what he was really doing is saying, hey, look, this isn't a place for you to get comfortable. And that's what we do, as people, we find ourselves in this routine or like just in this area that really shouldn't be in, but like, you know what? Let me get comfortable here. Let me just kind of get into the routine of things. And it stops you. It stops you from really pursuing that passion, that burning, like that hunger that you have in you, because everybody has it. Everybody has something inside of them, that best version of them that they're afraid to show out in the world because you're afraid of criticism. Like you're afraid of what other people are going to think, what other people are going to say. You're afraid of failure.
Mhm.
And everyone's the same, and I'm no different. I still have those fears. But what scares me more is the idea of letting some potential go, of having some unreached ability that I could have done if I just was willing to work a little bit harder.
And it's about this becoming the average too, right? Because the school system kind of trains us to be the average in a way. Then you lose that fire inside of you sometimes.
Well, you got to remember too, school was originally created to create great workers, right? That's why
Yes.
we created, universities and college so that somebody could learn to go be a great worker so that you take in this knowledge just like you would when you get to a new job, and then you can repeat and take action on it. And the problem with the school system, in my opinion, is all along the way, you learn everything you should and shouldn't be. From
Mhm.
grade school, you learn all of the jobs that are acceptable, all of the things you should major in, all the things you shouldn't major in, the colleges you should go to, the colleges you shouldn't go to. And what that does along the way is it kind of just starts to box you in. Said, nope, like, let's come back over here. You shouldn't be over there. Like, come over here, come over here. Well, what about the person who wants to be like a paint dancer and just live like and express themselves fully? That isn't accepted in how we normally do school. So all along this way, you have to learn how to undo that. Like, once you really start to step into the light, you have to learn to undo all of those things you were taught before so that you can just pull the best version of you out. Because I
Mhm.
truly, like, truly believe that every single person was put on this earth to help push the world forward in a way that only you can do. But the only way you ever get to see that is if you find like that truest version of you.
And sometimes it's hidden among the stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Below all those layers of things that you were told you could be, couldn't be, should be, shouldn't be.
Yeah. We program ourselves and then we start believing it.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes. So what does it take to undo it?
For me, it takes pushing yourself into really uncomfortable spaces. I'll tell you, there's a mindset, or there's a place that I really love mentally. And some people call it staring into the abyss, some people call it complete exhaustion, but I'll tell you, I met it when I did my first Ironman race.
Mhm.
So an Ironman, that was 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile
Yes.
bike, followed by a marathon, 26.2 mile run. On mile 18 of the run, I found that I was so exhausted, like mentally and physically, that the thoughts that would come into my head were so elementary. The only thing I could tell myself was, okay, run 30 seconds at a time. And I did that for 8.1 miles. For 8 miles, I said, run 30 seconds at a time. But the coolest thing about that moment is, although there were 2,000 other people in the race, everyone else disappeared. It was just me staring myself in the mirror,
Mm.
and you find the truest version of you. And there's only two things that have ever driven me to that, which one was Iron Man and the other was special warfare training. But, you just get such a raw version of you. That's where you get to really see what you're capable of. That's where you really get to see who you are, who it is under all these layers and layers of things like we talked about that you programmed along the way,
Mm.
and get to see, okay, this is me. I think I know where I want to go now.
Like you meet your true person first
Exactly.
for the first time in a moment of either you give up or are you going to finish, right?
Yeah,
So that's determination, is it?
it
Is that
is. It is not. I'll tell you a story. I took my brother on a bike ride the other day. We went out on a bike ride called Glendora Mountain Road. And I told him, I said, hey, look, we're just going to go on an 8 mile ride. It's beautiful. It's scenic. You're going to love it. And I bike a lot, and he doesn't bike at all. So I took him without any
training?
description of what we were doing. But the truth is, it was 8 miles up a mountain. So the entire time you're riding your bike up this hill, and it takes about an hour, hour and a half, depending on how good of a biker you are. And I left him. So we started at the bottom. I said, hey, I'll meet you at the top.
Mm.
And so I left him. And as he's going through this, like, he's all by himself on your normal, like, cruiser bike, while I'm on this really fast, like, sleek triathlon bike. And so he gets up there, and I'm super proud of him. And we get back down to the bottom. I said, okay, tell me what was going through your head while you're going up the mountain. And he was a little bit hesitant to tell me. So I said, hey, what I picture is, at first, you're probably going to be a little mad at me because I put you on this mountain in a slow bike while I've just left you on this really fast bike and said, I'll meet you at the top. Then once you get through that, you're going to probably have a little bit of negative self thoughts because you're pushing yourself to a very uncomfortable space. You're questioning if you can do this, so your mind's going to work through that. But then you're going to accept where you are at some point, and you're going to have the most clear thoughts. You're going
Mm.
to have thoughts about what you want to do with your future and stuff. And he said, yeah, that's exactly what's happened. He told me he thought about love, like what he wanted in his life with love. He told me he thought about what he wanted in his life with business, with family. He had some ideas of things he wanted to pursue. And I said, that is exactly where I wanted you to be on this bike ride. But most people never push themselves that far to really get to that really uncomfortable space where you're just face to face with you.
Love it. Love it. That's where you really see your determination. You meet your determination. It's no longer a word. It is where you really there, get to feel it.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be just physical. Think about the times you step out on stage speaking. Think about the first time you did a podcast. You're super nervous, like you're anxious, you're really uncomfortable, but you're pushing yourself into these uncomfortable spaces because you get to see more and more of you.
Yeah, it does open up. I'm just remembering, I survived. I almost nearly drowned when I was young. So my husband, one time we went to Mexico and he said, let's go scuba diving. Let's go. And I'm like, I don't know. And he said, let's get you training. Let's get the training. And then there's every day these people will come and train you in the pool. I'm like, okay, if I get training, I should be okay. So started validating. I'm a math brain. So I'm like, okay, I could calculate it. It's good. 5 days of training should do. And I got the training, and the day has come to go and plunge. And I'm sitting on the boat and everyone's leaving. And the guy said at the last moment, he put all the equipment and he said, I have to push you. Because they have to push you like this, right? You can't just jump. I have to push you. And I said, you can't push me. I started getting, my fear started rising. You can't push me, because for someone who drowned, pushing is the last thing I want someone to do for me. And he said, you can't go then. I said, okay, fine, I'll go sit. And then I thought about like that moment you just described, sat there by myself, empty, and he's gone downstairs doing something else. And then I went and called him and I said, you can push me. And then I had the best time in my life down there, to be in a world that I could have never seen if I didn't sat and had that conversation with myself. And I was so proud of myself at the same time, right? It's a proud moment for you. Like it's never, like I think your brother probably felt that too when he got to the top.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Just because you're pushing yourself outside of your boundaries, but you're also, finding better and better versions of you, and like furthering that idea of what's possible and what you're capable of. That was the whole reason I wrote the book, was to open people's idea of what's possible for their own lives. I got a message yesterday. It really just warmed my heart. Someone reached out and they messaged me and said, hey, I read your book. Like, what's amazing to me was that you did all this. You joined the military. You're about the same age I was. It showed me that I can do so much more than I really ever thought. I was thrilled, because that was the whole reason I wrote it in the first place.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's the person you wanted to read.
Exactly.
Love it, love it. So if a student is, let's go to students and parents, a student is, going through life without knowing what I want to do, where I want to go, what's your advice to them? Just like floating around, because it's that
Try
age, right?
everything. Just try everything. Don't try to get into one sport so that you can get a scholarship. Just do everything, and do it unapologetically. Don't worry about what other people are going to think. If you have an yearning to go make ceramics, go make ceramics. Like, it doesn't matter, because you're going to find the things that truly light you up. And those are the things that you want to stick with.
Explore. It's the best time to
Exactly.
explore. Yes.
Exactly. Because people think,
yeah, go ahead.
people think like there are these, predestined paths to success. And we always look at success as monetary success. But truthfully, when you look at the most successful people, none of them followed those paths. All they did was follow the thing that made them the most passionate, the thing that lit them up the most. And that brought success with it. And we don't look at things that way. We just look at it as, okay, we know if you're going to be a doctor, you will probably make a lot of money. We know if you go to school and be a lawyer, you will also likely have a great success. What if you want to sell books on the internet in the 90s? That person probably sounded crazy, but now he's one of the richest men in the world because he pursued something that he believed in.
And it goes back to our school system, right? We like to box ourselves. the system teaches us to put us in some kind of bucket or category. So then we can't explore.
Yeah.
So either that or this.
And I'm not anti-school. Like I've got my MBA and bachelor's. Like I've gone to all the schools. I think school has a lot of value,
Of
but
course.
I
Yeah.
think it does when you understand that there are more options out there than what school will teach you.
Yeah. Exploration is what it needs to add more, like self-discovery,
Yes,
like this type of training that we just talked about, pushing
exactly.
yourself to that uncomfortable place and seeing how you talk to your true self and what you come
Right.
out, because those moments will determine who you're going to become, give you the clarity, because I think your brother got a clarity there, right? Yes, yes. So who did you write the book for? Who are your audience?
So originally I wrote it for my daughters. As a parent, my biggest fear is that my kids won't know how to work hard. Because we
Mm,
work and work to try to create a life that takes away the adverse situations that we grew up with, correct? Like
mm,
that's what every parent's goal is I want to create a better life for my kids. But my big fear in that is that you also take away the lessons that were learned through that adversity. The lessons that you learned through those hardships where you had to innovate and really become who you are. How do you teach that to your children? And so I started writing down these stories that you normally wouldn't share at the dinner table, stories that never would come up in conversation, to show them like this is how we got here. Like this was the path that led to all of these decisions, that all these values, this is where this came from.
mm,
And as I started to write it, as I started to pull those stories out, I realized, this isn't something that's just going to be helpful to my daughters. This is something I really should share with more people.
mm,
And so, my goal, like I said, was to just find people and show them you don't need to be boxed in. Like you're more than what your resume says.
mm.
You can make this life how you want it, but you have to be willing to put in the work.
Yeah, there's work. There's lots of work, especially in the mind.
It is.
It's up here.
Exactly.
People say work hard, hard, hard. That's not enough. You have to work on your mind as you're working those hard things as well, because
I
this can
think
ruin your hard work, right? Up here.
I think
Go
people
ahead.
misconceive that because you think work hard, hard, hard. You think about somebody who works from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Mm,
That's not the path, in my opinion. It comes holistically. Like, how do you push yourself physically? How do you push yourself spiritually, mentally? The other things will come because you're working on yourself as a person. You're working on that growth, working on pushing yourself into those uncomfortable spaces so that you can get closer and closer to this person, this like purpose, like this hunger you have inside.
mm,
And then the business part, the success part will come, it'll show.
yes.
And that's been proven to me over and over again.
Mhm, mhm. So can a parent buy this for their kids? Like, is it written for kids? Like you said, it's for your daughters, but is it really, or did you change it and write it for adults?
I think your target audience is probably anywhere from 15 to 50, you
Okay.
know.
Mhm,
So it's probably a good read once you hit that early high school age.
mhm.
I would love to be able to put this into a form that's really good for like my kids who are 2 and 3 years
Yeah.
old.
Yes.
Um, but that's a project for another day.
Yes. Yes. It's coming up.
Yeah.
So, so for parents who are listening, how can they create opportunities for their kids to push beyond that comfort part and push it where they can test their determination? What
Well,
can they
I'm not going to pretend to be the expert in parenting because I am still new in this game.
But let's
But
see what you
I
got.
will tell you that the two things that my wife and I have agreed on is that anytime our kids will come to us and say, "Hey, like I want to give this a shot," we're going to meet them enthusiastically and say,
Mhm.
"Okay, let's go after it." And then two, if they sign up for something, they got to finish it.
Yes.
So if they start it, they're going to finish it. And
Mm,
that's it. Show them to finish what they start and encourage them to try new things and meet them enthusiastically about it. Because I think a lot of times when we want to try things and we get hit with these barriers, you go to your parents, say, "Hey, I want to do this. I want to try this. I want to go for this job." If we meet them negatively, they're never going to try it. And then they'll be less apt to try things in the future. I
mhm.
want my girls to try everything, but I want them to finish what they start.
Mhm, mhm. And how are you helping people now in your life? Well, how did you find your purpose? It seems like you have.
You know, I have tell you, I'm still pushing myself into those uncomfortable spaces. I'm still, pursuing this because the thing that I've realized at this point in my life is the more that I speak, the more that I get out, the more that people read this story, the more podcasts I get on, the more stages I get on, the more people I have the ability to impact, the more people that, get to hear my story. And if maybe I talk to a room full of 100 or 1,000 and one person hears something that just clicks with them, that helps them in that moment, that's all I want. Like that's
Mhm,
all, that is my whole goal right now is how can I help impact more and more people? And
mhm,
what's shown to me is to keep speaking. Stop, holding yourself back and just keep pushing yourself into those uncomfortable spaces.
mhm. So this is your new uncomfortable
Oh,
space
100%, 100%.
because you've
I
already
will,
been the Iron Man, so that's not any more hard, right?
I'll tell you, I didn't even have an Instagram 8 months ago. Like I had
Wow.
zero internet footprint. So being out here and like sharing personal stories was very outside of my comfort zone. It was something I had to practice, something I had to learn, something I had to get really comfortable with.
Yeah.
you know but when I realized that me telling those stories could maybe help you or help somebody else, well then it made it seem selfish for me to keep all of those inside.
Especially, I think young boys, even my 17-year-old son, he would tell me, like, we have good relationship, we have very good relationship, but he would tell me, I don't want to share my feelings, mom. And I'm like, tell me, right? I would be joking and asking him, and he's like, no, mom, leave me alone. I don't want to talk about my feeling. Something about boys and feelings, they always don't want to go in there. And he said, I don't need a therapy. I said, I'm not a therapist. I'm not going to give you therapy. But he always walks away or runs away from me when it comes to feelings. Everything else he'll talk, but sharing feelings is so hard. Was that like that for you as a man?
Oh, for sure. Because we paint this idea of what a man should be, this stoic, manly man figure of what a man should be. And then as a young man, young boy, like that's what you pursue. You pursue this person who's strong and athletic and doesn't have hurt feelings. So then it really hinders your ability to share, to
Mm,
open up, to connect. And I was no different. I'll tell you, I hit all of those benchmarks. Like I boxed in college. I went into special warfare.
mm,
I hit the normal things that you like, okay, check, manly man. But what I wasn't doing was I wasn't opening up, I wasn't sharing, I wasn't connecting with other people, and we were not put on this world to just be isolated and stoic. We were put on this world to connect and help and grow and move forward together as humanity, as people. That doesn't happen when you are this isolated stoic figure that's, people can't approach. That happens when you really open yourself up, you share and connect, and then people want to come talk to you, say, okay, cool, how can I help you? How can we work together, to
mm,
better the world?
mm. So how can a parent like myself open my son to tell me some of his feelings? Because I have daughters who doesn't stop speaking any, it's all feelings, and then here's my son who won't even tell me anything. He's like, I'm fine, don't worry.
Well, I think what you're doing already is amazing because I got to meet your son and you're exposing him to more and more men out there. So you get to change this idea of what a man should be, because now he's getting images and getting to meet different men in the world that, somebody along the way is going to click for him and he's going to be like, wow, that's somebody I really want to be with. And you're doing such an amazing job at exposing him to them
Mm,
because he's getting to meet people that normal 17-year-old kids don't. And so
yes,
as a young man, you start to develop this Rolodex of traits and people that you like and you think that you want to pull from. And you're doing an amazing job at showing him great men already.
thank you. What about what other ways another parent bring their kids to like their sons to talk, young sons? Because how did you come out of that? Is it through your
Now,
life?
I I didn't hit that until I was much older. I didn't that didn't
Older.
happen as a kid. So I wish I could tell you the answer.
What would have helped you at that time? Is there anything that would have helped you, or is it
I think having that environment of encouragement,
encouragement?
understanding that there was nothing that I could have brought to my parents that would have gotten, shot down or degraded, would have made for a more sharing environment. I didn't have that. There wasn't
Mm,
really a lot of sharing. We didn't talk about feelings. I didn't tell you about, what I was trying to be or what I wanted to be, because I knew what the answers were.
mm,
I didn't want to give the wrong answer and tell you that, I want to be a professional ice skater, because I knew that would immediately get shot down.
mm,
The answers
mm,
that I had to come with were, I wanted to go to school and go to computer science. I wanted to enlist in the military, like things that I knew would be accepted. And if we create an environment where our kids are open and aren't fearful of our response, then my hope is that they'll share more.
and that's what you're doing for your daughters
I'm trying,
earlier.
trying my best.
Yeah, yeah, you're already doing it because you said earlier when they come to you, accept it, encourage them, and get them to finish what they started.
Yeah,
Because kids do need that guidance, because at that age, when they're growing up, when things get hard, they just pull back. But as parents, we have to say that determination, stay with what you started, finish, and see what you can take away from it. Yeah, so
exactly.
you're already doing it exactly what you didn't have. So that's amazing. Those are what your values are for your kids and your family.
Thank you.
So how did your wife help you with all this? Is there some parts of that? You said you were not connected. Does that connection come through falling in love and finding the right person, maybe?
Well, I'll tell you, I think love is work. I don't think it's just like fantasy
No.
just happens.
Oh no, it's work.
Um, but I'll tell you, as I've opened up and really become more and more vulnerable to
Mm,
my wife, that's grown us closer and closer together. And she's my rock. You'll see at every single Ironman race I've ever done, she's been there with my daughters.
yes.
Um, and recently I went to speak. I was hosting this event. I was the MC. And every time I got off stage, I went right back to my wife, because I was really trying to pour myself out emotionally and be there for the audience. But I needed her to just kind of emotionally recharge. And I would go up to her and said, "Hey, look, I just want a hug." And our good friend Will, he pointed this out. He said, "I noticed every single time you got off stage, you went straight to your wife. Like, it was very clear that she was your rock."
Mm,
And she is, because I allowed myself to be vulnerable to her. I allowed myself to really give me to her fully.
mm,
It's also allowed me to propel, because I have her there. I have,
mm,
no matter what happens, I know she's there, because I fully committed myself to her.
mm, mm. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Energy work. Energy in, energy out, right?
Exactly.
So what's next for you, Justin? What's up? What's coming up? What do you see a future?
Right now I'm really focused, like I said, and just kind of pushing myself out there, and because it's still uncomfortable for me to speak and to share. And because I'm so used to, kind of as a kid, getting shot down, getting kind of met with that negative energy when you would
No.
share too much. So I'm really still working on pushing that out. Writing and publishing the book really helped that, because it's already out there. Like, anybody could buy it on Amazon and read all these stories that I've been scared to share about. But world has shown me over and over again, the more that I share, the more that I talk, the more stages I get on, the more people I get to positively impact. And that's my entire goal, is how can I just do this so I can impact more and more people? I need to speak more.
Yes. And I think I want to hear you share more about your determination, because you just look so determined. Your look, everything just shines. Like determination is the word, like resonating off of your presence here. So maybe for the young people and the people, men, who you're going to encourage, right? Just showing them how to find that determination, because it's so hard, right? That's what pulls us all back into our shell again and close, because I don't see myself doing it.
That's why I said you have to know that you're more than your resume. You're
Mm,
so much more than what you could ever fit on a piece of paper. That piece of paper will never show the person who worked 30 hours a week during high school, the person that, paid their way through college, the single mom who raised two kids while working and still pursuing her own dreams. That stuff doesn't show on a resume. But that's the sauce. Like that's the thing that really makes you you.
Yeah.
So why would you ever accept this one page as the limits of what you're capable of? No, you're capable of so much more.
And that's why even elevator pitch, everybody would say. I've never mastered that because I'm like, I'm just gonna say what resonates at that time. That's my
Right.
pitch. And I'm not gonna pitch anyone because I don't need to. I've always told this, and like everybody says, "What's your elevator pitch?" I'm like, I'm
Oh, I'm
not
so
gonna,
bad at it. I'm
right?
so bad at it.
But I don't want one though. Why should it be always same? What about that day? How I feel? How I feel in the presence of you is different than how I'm gonna feel in the presence of someone else.
Yeah.
We're all energy, right? We're so the energy change. I'm gonna have to change it. I can't just say robotically. You have this one thing that I say to everyone. So
No,
I
I'm
change all
so
the
bad.
time. I change all the time. Whatever my mind says, it's what's gonna come.
Yeah. When
Because
people ask me
sometimes
what I do, I'm like, I have no idea. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do I do? You talking to me? Oh,
I'm sharing my stories. That's what I
yeah.
do. Right? It's a big thing to share about
Yeah.
yourself. I think writing book also helped me a lot too. And when I was able to get it out of me, then I saw the power of how others can read that and get
Yeah.
value out of it too. I grew up in a very bad family too. My father's an alcoholic, and my mother was very powerless, within his presence. So life was hard. Life was hard. So all of that is what makes us, right? Yeah.
The
So and
lessons
now,
that you take along the way.
yes, yes. So your book, one more thing that you said that really resonated with me is that you want to show your daughters that your life may be so wonderful and nice because I'm creating that for you, but you still need to know about adversity.
You got to know where you come from. You know, I started my own business last year. So I would tell you I was working as a COO of a $24 million company. I had reached this pinnacle of what we work towards in the school system. I hit
Mm,
all the check marks. I went to a great college, I got my MBA, and then I stopped. I worked my way up until I was an executive. And then I quit and I started my own job, and I got met with a lot of discouragement for doing that because I hit everything that everyone says you're supposed to do. But my grandmother, who brought her family here from Egypt, who fought to start a food truck in the middle of Philadelphia where she
mm,
sold Middle Eastern food until it got so popular that it was on the front page of Philadelphia Inquirer, pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I know what you're doing is difficult, and I want to let you know that I'm so proud of you."
mm,
Because it's important. Like it's important to know where you come from. And I wanted to tap into that. Like that was what I wanted to come because I came from that woman who
mm,
came here from Egypt in the
mm,
70s.
My life was like that to move to Canada when I was 6 years old.
And imagine if your son never knew everything that you accomplished to get to this point.
Yeah,
But now that he does, he gets to go about life knowing that he has that power in him because it came from you.
yeah. It grounds them,
Exactly.
really grounds him for who he is and what he has right now. Yes, powerful, powerful. So your book, we can buy it on the Amazon and we
Yep.
can find you on Instagram. Is there
That's
anywhere
correct.
else they can
Those are your
listen to
best.
you?
It's your best bet right now. We're also getting ready to launch a podcast at the end of this month
Nice.
called Now What, where we talk to people who really kind of built things up, like going into special warfare, professional athletes, but then had to start over. You know, how do you take all of that energy that really got you that success in the first place and then channel that to something different?
Mm-hmm.
So that'll start to be seen on YouTube, but Instagram, Amazon, those are your best
Yeah.
places right now.
And I think young boys needs to hear that podcast that you're gonna create and the book as well. I think lots of young boys needs their to have some role models, right? And you're
Yeah.
saying it from after doing all of this. I've done all of this, Ironman. I want to ask about that. So can anyone go into becoming an Ironman? Do you just sign
Anyone
up or
can. Yeah. Just sign up, get a bike, go after
mm,
it.
and how much do you train before you actually do the event?
Uh, I'll tell
What
you. So I've done
what's
4 Ironman events. I have never really put a lot of training into them up until this point. I am a very stubborn individual. Like I said, if I start something, I'm going to finish it. And
So
so I didn't,
commitment,
yeah,
commitment.
I didn't properly go about racing these before, but I am now. Now I have a really good coach who helps me, train and get ready for the races that I have this year. Because before I figured out what I could do out of stubbornness, now I really want to see what I'm capable of. That's really my theme of this
Mm.
year and this purpose is I want to know what I'm capable of. Let me
Mhm.
figure out how to push that envelope further in
Mm.
everything.
So does that mean mastering the time, getting less of the
Mas-
time?
Mastering time for sure.
Mm.
Because usually my workouts are 1 to 2 hours a day. So I have to figure out, okay, where am I going to fit in a 2 hour bike, a 4 hour bike, and really kind of dialing that calendar in to make sure those things happen.
So well, how does one stay committed? What does it take to become, like, let's say someone's young is listening to this, to our conversation, and they're like, I like to try Ironman. Maybe I say, maybe not,
Come on
but,
out. Come on, you can come join.
and what does it take to stay committed to that and
You got
go
to know
for
why
it?
you're doing it. You got to know
Mm.
why you're going after anything. I'll tell you, a couple weeks ago, I had a really hard moment where I felt like I was failing in everything.
Mm.
I felt like I was failing in Ironman training because I felt like I wasn't doing enough. Felt like I was failing in business because my business wasn't hitting the numbers that I had thought they would by now. I felt like I was failing as a husband because I was so distracted by all this other stuff that, I wasn't really present as a husband and father. And I felt like in every aspect, I was failing. And so I had to stop myself and I put on my headphones and I laid on the ground and I listened to a song that really just grounds me, really just kind of brings me back. And when I got up from that, I went to the whiteboard and I started writing out and I said, wrote one question on the whiteboard. I said, why are you doing this? Like, what are you doing all of this for? And for me, it was to find out what I'm capable of, like
Nice.
to find out what I really got in me. And then I wrote that out into, okay, if I'm really pursuing that, what are these different checkpoints that I can hit? What does that mean in Ironman? What does that mean in business? What's that mean as a father? It's okay, these are all the checkpoints, and what are the things that I need to do to make this happen? And then I wrote out all the action steps, but I had to stare it in the face and say, okay, why am I doing this? I want to find out what I'm capable of. I know I could already hit all the checkpoints that school teaches you. I want to know what's beyond that.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's powerful because a lot of people tend to put on this wall, pretend like everything is okay. I got everything covered, social media covered, my stage is covered, my life is covered. I'm a good dad, I'm a good father, good husband, right? But then we can't share when we're not good. Because if we share, it might look like we're falling apart.
But you need to know the ups and downs because if you want to climb this mountains, if your goal is to be at the top of the peak, you're going to hit a lot of boulders. Like you're going to have to go up a lot of hills.
Yes.
It's going to be difficult.
So, what's your last advice to parents who are listening?
To parents, just love your children every day. That's the most important thing. When you look at least I'm not a psychologist, but when you look at like any adult problems that we run into, any kind of hindrances that you see in people, a lot of times it always goes back to their childhood. Like, were they loved? Like, were they encouraged? And so every single day, and I stole this from a good friend of mine, I tell my girls, I said, I love you. You are amazing. You are so beautiful. And my daughter, I had to correct her the other day. She's like, well, yeah, I'm beautiful because I'm dressed up. I said, no, you are beautiful.
Oh.
Like you are so amazing and I love you. And I tell them both that every single day. So they
Mm.
know.
Mm. Yes, important, powerful, very powerful. Yes, our self is created during those early years, up,
Exactly.
especially the first 5 years. So critical. How old are your daughters?
2 and 3
Oh, yes. Nice. Beautiful. Yes. Keep saying those things. That's so powerful.
every day, every day.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you, Justin, for being here today. Good luck with everything. I know you're going to be going big and helping a lot of people. You have determination, so no one can stop you. And you're figuring out what are you capable of. So together, there's nothing to stop, right?
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having
much.
me.
Thank you. So there you have it. So that was an amazing, amazing conversation with Justin. He has been in many things, as I said. I think one of the things that after I read his all about him, it was determination. It's just, he does not give up. As you heard him, he's pushing even further what he is capable. When we are pushing, what are we capable of to that next level, Ironman, being on the Air Force and all these things he has done, pushing it even further, I can only imagine. So I wanted to bring him because there's so many lessons that we could take for our own kids. That's why I was asking him about how do we help our sons who cannot talk about their feeling. And you can see he's even learning himself how to express himself and allow him to talk about his feelings in his childhood, because it is hard for us to talk about it, especially girls. We tend to share a lot of feelings, but as I'm noticing with my son, even he doesn't want to share feelings because he doesn't feel it's appropriate for a man to share feeling. We only talk, we don't share feelings. But that's not right, because as if that's how they feel, they're going to bottle all this up and they'll never know how to connect in their relationships. They'll never know how to be the right parent. So we have to open this up for our sons. So how do we do it? It's a great way to look at what he was saying is we need to explore, we need to accept when they're coming to us, we need to accept, and we need to make sure that we give them space and allow them to express themselves and not be judgmental, because his parents, as he was growing up, he knew what he needed to say. If he said anything that they were not expecting, they would not like it. So he learned what to say, what they wanted to hear. So we don't want our sons or daughters to grow up like that, where they're coming and talking to us and telling us what we want to hear. I don't know if you had those conversations. I have it with my son, and I can really tell when he's saying things I want to hear. And I tell him that I don't want you to tell me what I want to hear. I want you to tell me what you're really, really feeling. So this is really good. People like Justin coming out from being in the Air Force, doing the Ironman and doing all these things, coming out and being a very successful entrepreneur and coming out and sharing their ups and downs. And he even shared in the last part of that conversation how last week he thought he wasn't the best. He wasn't doing everything right. He was doing things wrong. But then he needed to ground himself, go back to what helped him, and he was able to find clarity, and he's able to find clarity in all aspects. We can't just focus on one aspect of our life. I am even learning that myself. We have to pay attention to all aspects of our life, because one sacrifice doesn't get you to win the other area. It will just damage that area as well. So we need to find a balance, and we need to draw boundaries, and we need to ask ourselves, what do I really want at the end of the day, right? As parents, the same thing. And I really loved what he said. Even though he grew up in a split family, he has forgiven his mom. That's so amazing, because for forgiveness, he was able to be the best dad for his daughters. He's able to connect. It's because when we don't forgive, we keep these regrets. That's why forgiveness is so important. Forgiveness and forgetfulness is so important, because the more we do that, our space in our brain becomes freed up, and we can create new memories with the people that we have now versus people we had in the past who have nothing to offer us anymore. So there's no point in keeping those memories and taking up our storage. I always think of our brain as a computer which has limited storage, and if I use that up, I can't put more new things in. So I have to delete. So for me, forgetting and forgiving is so important for useless and things that happened to us in the past and that's haunting me. I don't want any of that taking up my storage. If we start talking to our brain like that, you're going to be empowered. You can empower your children too. Don't waste memory. Delete, and organize, and keep what's important. And be here today. Present is so important. Being present is so hard now, because we have so much distraction that can take our attention away, and that's looking for attention. So that's why really, really important to have family time, dinner time, walk and talk time, drive and talk time. Just create these special times when you can really bond with your kids, and always tell them how much you love them and how much you appreciate them for being with you, because they're a gift to us. Our children are a gift to us. So the last thing I wanted to say is establishing family routines. Did you notice how Justin started off and how his face was so bright when he was explaining this tradition that his dad did, was to take him to the airport and watch the planes take off. And that also kind of gave him the drive to become who he became, because he looked up to his dad as well, because we are our kids' role model. And then he's now doing that with his kids and his father. How beautiful is that outing, going to the airport, and how much is those girls, his daughters, are learning from this experience is just amazing. That's why I love traditions. I love things that we establish as a family that we do, and then we feel like they're not big deal. But then when we grow up, that's what we remember. Those are the things. That's why story times is important. Watching TV together, reading together, eating together, walking, going into the forest, creating something that you do on a weekly basis or daily basis that establishes routine that we look forward to. But then when we become adults, we actually think about it. And that becomes an example for our own kids as well. So thank you for listening today, and I'll see you on another episode.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Our purpose for this episode was to spark a reevaluation of the current education system. For more episodes offering practical and comprehensive strategies to enhance learning, please visit www.learningsuccessacademy.com. It is crucial to ensure that children have access to the holistic neurogrowth learning approach, enabling them to break free from the constraints of an outdated educational framework. This is your opportunity to gain insight and break away from a flawed system, setting your children on a path to lifelong success that truly nurtures their thirst for knowledge. That's all for now. We look forward to having you join us for the next episode.